Shalom Aleichem. I'm making this clip, the Ilu Nishmas, a tribute to the Hershel Feigelstock, who passed away today in Montreal at the age of 98. Rabbi Hershel was a Tayre Yid, a special chassid, a mechanech par excellence, and someone who embraced Lubavitch at a very young age, when it was very easy to go to not Lubavitch yeshivas and institutions. And in fact, one of his brothers became a Rosh Yeshiva, a leading Rosh Yeshiva and a Litvish Yeshiva. Rabbi Hershel chose Lubavitch. I owe him a personal indebtedness that he shared with me some very intimate stories, some of which can be told, some of which can never be told, and opened up for me a view of understanding the 1940s and 770 in Montreal with the Rabbi and Reb Shmuel Levittin and the Rashag, and that whole period and the transition. It became clearer to me from hearing various things that Reb Hershel shared with me. But today, I want to focus a little bit on him and his life and his accomplishments. I had to be in Montreal once to interview a few people, and one of the people was Reb Hershel. Reb Hershel came from Vienna, and he made his way to Montreal, and he entered the Lubavitch Yeshiva in Montreal in 1943, and that's where he met the 9 Tamimim, Rabbi Weinberg, Rabbi Tenenbaum, Rabbi Kramer, and several others, and he became the 10th. They were like in their 20s, 22, 23 or so, and he was like 20, anyway, or less than 20, but and they inspired him. When I came to his house, there was a sight that I never saw. Every bookshelf, every piece, every place was full of Sfarim, books and Sfarim and manuscripts and Kaiftsim. I'm convinced he had probably 10 to 20,000 books and Sfarim in his house, and he took me around and he showed me, and he was very humble, very, very humble. But I asked him about it, so he took me a little bit around to show me, and it was amazing. It was really, really amazing. The house that is really Svarim, and the house part is secondary. That's what I felt visiting him. And it all started that about 20, 25 years ago, he called me various times. He heard I put out this and this book, and he needs it and he wants it. So I said, Rabbi Feigelstock, no problem, we'll get it to you. But I'm just curious, you need my books, like you're reading my, I knew that he's not an American. He said, yes. And I found out that he was a collector of all and any books and Svarim, and to him, he needed to have every book that I put out, at least at that period, in the late 90s, going into the 2000s. Reb Hershel also told me that he buried my great-grandfather, my paternal great-grandfather. He told me that he remembered how he heard him screaming because he had the machla, and in those days there was no cure, and he was in big pain, and he says, I remember it like today. And ultimately when he died, my grandfather, the great-grandfather in 1950, Reb Hershel actually buried him. And I believe he even took me to the Beis HaKaros, to the cemetery in the Montreal area where he's buried. So that was also very touching. I never knew that. Much has been discussed about his education on the Gem films that they've put out about him. But one of the things that he told me was that the Montreal Tamimim, the Montreal Bocharim, had a special, the Rebbe liked them, had a special fondness of them. And he said that Reb Shmuel Levitten, the elder Chassid, would come from time to Montreal to farbrengen for them, give them a shir and talk to them. Remember, these were all mostly were students who lost nebuch their families, right? They were killed in the Holocaust, and Reb Shmuel was like a father to them. And he said that there were problems that he and others asked of Reb Shmuel. Reb Shmuel said, "Go to the Ramash. Go to the Ramash." And I'm talking about 1943, 44, 45, 46, 47. I'm not talking about just 1949 and 1950. I'm talking about 7 years. Go to the Ramash. So to me, this was very interesting that already Reb Shmuel in the 43 smelled the greatness and heiligkeit and holiness of the Rebbe, and he advised those Montreal Tmimim, Bacharim, if you have an issue, discuss it with the Ramash. So naturally, when it came 1950, after the Stalkas, the Frierdiker Rebbe, Reb Shmuel was one of the people who led, or maybe the main person who led the campaign for the Rebbe becoming the Rebbe. Reb Hershel Feigelstock was a Yid who was dedicated to Torah. Now, he told me that he met the Frierdiker Rebbe in Vienna. I believe that he told me that he met him in 1936. Now, in 36, he was about 15 or 16, I believe. And he and a friend heard, he told me, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe is here. And he hadn't heard about Lubavitch before. He didn't come from a Lubavitcher family. But you know, they said a tzaddik, a great person, is here. Go hear him, go speak to him, go see him. So they went, and this is 36. I remember clearly he told me it was 1936, because I asked him a question, whether the Frierdiker Rebbe's speech was already impaired in 1936 to some degree. So he told me that he remembers the voice of the Frierdiker Rebbe, hearing him say a sicha and or a mimer in I think it was a mimer. And he even told me the mimer, and I don't recall now which mimer it was, but he remembers the divrei hamaschil of the mimer, and he heard, and he says the speech was clear, and we can hear him, and I was a 60-year-old boy, I didn't know any chassidus, aber ich hab verstanden. I heard him. And so that told me that at least then the Frierdiker Rebbe's speech was good. Now, it could be that the Rebbe had times like this and times like that. That's my understanding. Because they say, I think in 1933, that's when he began having issues with his speech. But it improved. And then there were times it became worse. Whatever. Anyway. So he already saw the Frierdiker Rebbe in 36, although he didn't really come to Lubavitch till 43 in Montreal, but he was impacted by the Frierdiker Rebbe's tzidkis, his holiness, he told me, already in 1936. There's much more to say, but I'll leave it for another time. The Eibusher should help that all the Maisim Tovim and the Schusim and the Sfarim that he owned, and he bought, and he learned, and he used, and he created a Bayis Moli Sfarim Kipshutai, which is a mitzvah of our Rebbe, to have a house full of Sfarim. This is a schus and also encouragement for us to have more Sfarim. You know, Hey Tavis is coming up soon, but in addition to Hey Tavis, Pashat Bayis Moli Sfarim was one of the mitzvahim. And we must never forget those mivtzayim and live with the mivtzayim. So, b'schusay, everyone should consider buying another sefer, looking at another sefer, writing another sefer, another book, another sefer. And this schus is the Shabbos Habim Aliyah, Hom Alichtig in Gan Eden, and 98 years worth of schusim, is a gateway for Geula, Moshiach, Gan Eden, Olam Haba, and alle gute Sachen. L'chaim, the Eibusher help that he passed on Tes Kislev, the Yortzeit, the Yom Aledes, and the Yortzeit of the Mittler Rebbe, which is a Yom Zakai. So the Mittler Rebbe shikin his entire family, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, the whole mishpacha, the larger Feigelstock mishpacha should have only simchas, and the ultimate simcha will be the Kitzur Ran the Sheikh Ofar v'hu b'toicham b'yachat with unser Rebbe and Kol Tzadikei Olam b'Yerushalayim HaKodesh b'bias Mashiach Tzidkenu Amen v'Amen l'chaim.